description, telepathic training module. Input, communication pattern, entity 1, entity 2, two entities in this module, communication pattern from one pole to the other pole, bipolar or double pole, not the psychological meaning of bipolar. Then the center of the two entities, center of mind, communication point, presence, observable through sensitivity. In this module, two entities interact. In this module, the interaction has attributes. The attributes are forms of energy or presence or thought, communication, and other forms. Interaction is involved with purpose in this module. Purpose is the purpose decided upon ahead of time. In this particular module, the particular purpose is the transmission of knowledge. The communication channel is telepathic and verbal. The resonance established between the two entities shall be known as the teacher and the student, or the master and the apprentice, and so forth. These relationships exist for the benefit of the continuation of the knowledge, which is the inheritance of the lineage that passes it on, or the school, or the college, or the university, or the book. The knowledge, therefore, can be gained through learning, through forms of education and training. The initial forms of education in this module are the initial contact between the two entities, which is the unborn child and the mother. Other relationships may exist: unborn child and father, unborn child and God, or unborn child and other beings. The module allows for multiple forms of relationship, but only one at a time, in that this module only contains two entities, so they are, in this instance, in this example, the newborn and the mother. Therefore, the teacher in this instant may be the newborn or the mother, and the teaching may occur simultaneously and actually timed. Serialization is part of the teaching that allows parents to learn especially if they pay attention to the children, the newborns and such. And in the teaching process, entity, the collaboration to produce the result is helpful to furthering the cause of what they are pursuing together, such as the relationship, family relationship of mother and child, or father and child, and or child and another person, or a pet, for instance. So all of these types of learning experiences are possible through the coordination of the interplay of the mind of the experiencers with each other. Although inanimate objects can be used, there are often spirits connected with them that makes the communication more viable. In understanding the resonance between the two entities in this module, it is part of the understanding to classify the attributes, whether they be mammal, animal of some sort, or spirit of some sort. So there are many possibilities in the basic relationship of one to another. And that is how, in this module, we will go beyond the basics and learn from the actual purpose of this module, which is psychic communication to transmit information between the teacher and the student, or the master and the apprentice, and so forth. So, with that in mind, taking the basic structure that has just been given, we are going to go into the basic relationships between teacher and student, and then eventually between student and student, and other forms such as student to non-student, and the preparation of the individual, student and teacher, through time to achieve their harmonic resonance with others that are working on the same path or are not working on it. And so, because of the complexity and the nature of this type of exercise, confidence is required and strict confidence is sought. And therefore, what is available is contact to teacher, and what the format is in the usual form is classroom or consultation person to person or telepathic, and all of these involve great karmic risk to either parties involved, in that the bond between the teacher and student, or master and apprentice, can be greater than what is normal in relationships. So they are usually longer lasting, and the consequences are so great that one has to beware of participating, and therefore such things as these are normally reserved for family, because the intimacy of the relationship is bonded by blood between those involved. So the first look at the intimacy of the relationship of entity to entity through family allows a transmission of knowledge that surpasses normal means, in that it is part of the makeup of the individual that inherits certain traits and certain lineages of psychic beings that visit, determining a certain amount of interplay and interchange with the past and spirits of relatives and spirits that are associated with places and times and spaces. And so in the learning process, the two individuals, and in this case it's the teacher and the student, are able to exchange energy and information because of an agreement usually made for the fulfillment of a certain particular type of skill. The skill set that is communicated by the psychic master will determine the skills that the student receives. Yet the student may try to attain greater heights by following more advanced procedures that are available to the diligent and perseverant student. Therefore, there is many types of pursuit available to anyone daring to risk such a pursuit, because the dangers are such that one might have too much of an influence from these pursuits to be able to be in the normal reality, as we might say, for the required amount of time. Therefore, using these types of energies and such are usually limited to the scope of the classroom and particular times that allow the participants to use their energy in such a way that doesn't exhaust them or take too much time out of their schedules and too much consuming their thoughts and mind. And so these types of pursuits by the student have to be limited to certain types of exercises and certain types of homework that are only supposed to be done at certain times in coordination with their teacher or their master, depending on the complexity of the work. Normal work wouldn't require a master for teaching it, yet a teacher might be able to handle the basics. Yet for advanced psychic work, it is necessary for the master to teach an apprentice that is fully committed to the path of knowing and being, because unfortunately there isn't really much going back, because the deeper you become, the deeper you are. And there is, it's like a sea you jump into, and there is really not much shallow water. And there are many places in which the student and the teacher can go together. And so there is a great complexity in the relationship that can transcend normal relationships and actually be more intimate than most people can realize, because the intimacy is such that the harmonics between the teacher and the student have to be so close in order for the teaching process to occur that the minds of the two become merged in certain manners and allow the student to know more, sometimes more than they should, and a lot of times more than they could without the extra help. So when you're learning from a master, your education may be accelerated to such a degree that you are really have to keep track of how fast you go and how fast you can go and where you're going in that process. Knowing what you're going to do in the process is something that is essential for the teacher, yet it also offers the student an insight to what they're working towards. So having an idea of the entire course and the course outline is essential to follow a procedure of learning that allows the psychic to develop their skills in an orderly manner and to be able to achieve what their skills or what their potentials might show. So in the organization of the time spent between the teacher and the student, or master and apprentice, that the individuals have to know exactly what they want to do and accomplish within the time frame, and then if they can accomplish more, that is, well, then they can go to higher levels within the time frame they have. There are often many consequences of these lessons that extend out into normal life, so it is really a matter of getting to know what these kinds of experiences might bring in other experiences or in the mind and consciousness. So when having these types of training or learning, it is sometimes changes people to such a degree that they have to readapt to the world in a constant manner. And this is good in a way, yet it is very time-consuming, because what you knew is not true when you know it's changing all the time, because you're changing all the time and your perception of time are changing too. Because you become a player in reality instead of a pawn, you are enabled to do things that aren't able for everyone. Knowing what your potentials are is great, yet knowing what your limitations are is greater. Knowing how to see what needs to be done is really something of a part of intuition, yet it takes an amount of prying and planning in order to get a good impression of how you can accomplish what you wish. Doing all you have to do according to a plan is easier than saying, well, I think I can do and jump and be all these things. So a random order might be good for some who like to dip and change and find their heart in everything, yet what people might find is really of value is to pursue these courses with steadfast attention. And what this would bring over time is a great discipline to the body and mind, and an ability for the person to take their life in their own hands and become more than what they think they are, to become more what they think they could be, because the future extends from your right now, and your love extends from your heart, and your mind can extend on to what you are. In this training, you might see that you are more than you thought that you might be. This is because you are not just a mark, a placeholder in reality. You are a player in what's going on all around and within yourself. You have an ability to be able to sense more, to be more, and to have more, maybe have less. There's always the consequence of doing things wrong, and yet there is always a greater joy from those who do things right. Thinking about things that are about to happen makes us sort of wonder, well, is this right or wrong? And then we start to think, yes, is this gonna be? But then if we take our mind off things, we know that if we take and put our minds into things that have to be, we are taking our minds and putting our minds in space and time. Yes, we are knowing that it's going to turn out the way we want if we can put it all together and change the world for the better. We are in this world together. And in our minds, in our hearts, we gotta make a start. In our world we know we have to stop the destruction. And that's all part of knowing your place in all creation. And if you feel more than you think you should, that is good. That means your ability is extending out from you. It is part of your heart. It is in your blood. It is in your mind. It is in your body. It is in your aura. It is in your light body. Extending the self from the self within to the self without is part of the teaching of the light body reality. The light body reality is an extension of the body from the body into the world, and the extension normally known as the aura is an extension of the body as we know. And in our aura are many energies that we may know and not know, and see or not see. But there are many things that may lurk there. Some things are good, some things are bad. But if we look at a little closer and have a little look at maybe a aura photograph, we could see the aura in and around the body has a certain glow or eminence and colors that are associated with frequencies translated through programs or cameras and such, so that we can understand exactly what is going on. Well, maybe not exactly, because there's so much more beyond. In this teaching between the student and the pupil, the student, the teacher and the pupil, or the teacher and the student, there is a amount of interaction that is occurring within and without. And this interaction and this courting is actually occurring, which is a connection between the mind and body of the teacher and student, or the master and apprentice, that allows the connection to become so strong and go so far within that it changes the reality of those involved, the teacher and the student. And so in this instance of this teaching, there is an interconnection, interconnectivity, that it can achieve a harmony and a transmission of information that it can exceed the imagination of the student. And the information can be so complex, but transmitted so efficiently and so immediately that the student has really very little choice but gulp. Oh, wow. It's such a great experience to know more than you did a moment ago and just not really have to work too great for it. But to understand it, unpack it, may take a lot more learning, because you have to know exactly what happened in the flow that just got planted in your mind. And going through those information that you have packed there, you might see it as a database that is something with knowledge everywhere. And there are methods and procedures to get to know yourself, methods to know the world and the universe around you. But these methods and procedures that we're going to explore now are methods that you can do in your classrooms or your exercises that you do with your teacher. So in this, there are certain postures you're going to want to have, certain types of sitting, or sitting on the floor, sitting on a chair, or even laying down in various positions. Even yoga positions can be used for this type of meditation, as we might call it. But it is really an interchange of energy between individuals that are in certain particular positions in relation to each other. Now, we would say, well, what does the position of an individual have to do with where and what is occurring in the actual training? So in the training, the individuals are usually in start out maybe in a classroom where there's more than one, or say several students are involved, or more, or even 20 or 30 students. But in the actual training of an apprentice, or that needs to know special skills that are beyond the classroom skills, that there is a more intimate connection between the teacher and the student. The classroom skills allow the teacher to familiarize the students with a great number of peculiar things that start to occur to them and in the world around them, so they're not so mystified or baffled by all the strange occurrences, that they're just starting to notice that it may have been going on all along, between the seeing without really seeing, and under their noses without them seeing either, and knowing and believing, and so on. So in this type of exercise, where the individuals are starting and learning to become psychic, and their interchange with their with their teacher, becomes important. And so in this interchange, we have to understand that there is a resonance that occurs, and in this resonance there are certain waves that occur. And now the waves are really often dependent on the position of the bodies in relation to each other. Now, if the people are widely separated, like at different parts of the world, then there's a different type of communication than if they were like inches apart. So because their auras and their energies would have different effects on each other, on their physical bodies, on their light bodies, on their emotional bodies, and their mental bodies, and their physical being probably too. Now, the interesting thing about this type of learning is that it can occur in many positions, many parts of the world, and the participants don't have to be in the same location. But if they're connected by, say, a cell phone, they might be able to do some things that most people wouldn't imagine. Especially when looking at the ability of light beings to communicate and do things at great distances, being able to communicate through cell phones or cellular technology is also important. And other forms and tests that are done in various labs and such. The establishing of mutual energy channels is usually difficult, so it really takes a good combination of teacher and student to be able to do great transmissions. But after a while, there is a possibility of greater transmission between student and teacher if the student can harmonize themselves. This may take quite a while. It may take up to a year or 2 or 10, just for the student to be able to get their life together, to their mind together, their being together, to absorb the teaching that the teacher has to offer. In this type of knowledge exchange of trying to become more psychic or aware of these psychic abilities and procedures, the individual student has to be able to use their abilities in demonstrable manners. So this involves actually doing hands-on experience with the teachers and such, and becoming the psychic that they wish to be.